Currently a free agent, has spent 15 seasons as an NFL quarterback, but for now will be trading in his helmet for a headset. The former NFL MVP will now be an in-studio and game analyst for NFL on CBS games. Brian pointed out on Twitter, quote, "This is not a retirement post." And Saints general manager Mickey Loomis says Michael Thomas can become a 100-catch wideout again. Back in 2019, the former All-Pro reset the single-season record for catches with 149. He's caught just 56 passes in the last 3 seasons combined. This has been NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network.
All new spring deals are here at Lowe's. Start planting your garden this weekend with Bonnie 11.8-ounce vegetables. Buy 4 for $10. Plus, liven up your patios and decks with fresh blooms. Select 1.5-gallon hanging baskets or 2 for $16. Lowe's knows spring. Lowe's knows home improvement. Offers valid through 5/17. In-store only. Actual plant size and selection varies by location. While supplies last, excludes Alaska and Hawaii.
Dazzling decal on Daisy's Donuts window. Bold banner at Barry's Barbershop. Prominent poster at Penny's on Park Place.
This is your sign. Well, signs. To try Staples and see the difference. Get $15 off signs, banners, and posters when you spend $75 or more.
From Staples, and I couldn't miss it.
N617. Visit staplesconnect.com/printbig for details.
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome in, everybody, to another edition of Sports Daily. It's Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor. Max Power in for Jad this week, producing for us. Glad to have Max on board. Glad to have you with us, whether you're listening on KFH or on the Odyssey app, whether you are watching us via YouTube or Facebook or Twitter. We're glad to have you with us today. The IHOP hotline always open, 869-1240. A lot to get to today. We'll have a Wichita Sports Hall of Fame induction a little later in the program. We have several topics to navigate through, a couple of which we didn't get to yesterday that we'll get in now today, including college basketball recruiting news and a story, I think, at least that has some interest, that our buddy Tim Fitzgerald has stirred up in a bit of a, we'll call it a discussion between he and some KU fans. It's not really that. It's more of an argument. But we'll get into it because it's pretty interesting as well as we make our way through. We get the start of the Western Conference Finals tonight. Plenty to get to on the show. Welcome in. Glad to have you here. Tommy, how are you?
I'm good. Hey, if you're watching the video stream right now, you're seeing Jacob rocking a hat, which I've never seen you wear a hat on the video stream.
We played golf yesterday.
Well, I was always really concerned that you weren't going to want to mess up that news anchor hair, and so that's why.
I'll show you why.
Put it back on. Yeah, put it back
on.
Tommy
and I played golf yesterday, and so I've got, I don't have my. Usually, what happens here, Tommy? A little inside baseball. Joe asks if a bad hair day. Yes, it is, because yesterday I wore a hat. And so normally, like, I have so much hairspray in my hair to go on TV because it's required. It's necessary that I can go to sleep and wake up and it's generally in the same place. So I'm good to go for the stream, right? I grew up, like, I was a hat every day guy for a long time, right? Like I was hat every day, whatever. And then, now as I get a little older, there's this fear, which we've addressed on this program, of all my hair being there like forever. So I don't wear hats a lot anymore. I've veered away from being a hat guy, but today I had to have one. We played golf. My hair was not, in television shape. And so I had to throw on a cap, and like, I don't know where all my hats are. And I would have worn a Rangers hat if they didn't get shelled by the Braves last night. I wasn't going to deal with that.
I was going to bring that up.
So I didn't wear a Rangers hat. So I've got the Wichita logo hat here that Wind Surge on opening day, I think, or something. But I love it. It's the cool Wichita flag logo with the baseball on it. So
if I didn't have to work, if I wasn't in my office every day, I would be a hat every day kind of guy. Like on the weekends, I'm a hat every day guy. Unfortunately, I can't do that in the office. So anybody watching the video stream can see the receding hairline. That fear that you have, it's reality for me. So you get to look at me every morning and be like, man, at least I'm not like that guy.
But fortunately for you, you don't have the kind of melon that exists underneath this hair. I was like, oh, I'll wear, Michelle's got a cool HTO hat. And I was like, oh, I'll wear that hat. And like, I had to resize it from where she wears it to where I needed to wear it. And it was embarrassing. Let's see if I'll show this to the video stream. So you see on these hats, like on the snapback hats, if you're watching us right now, you can see this. Like there's not much left. Like I almost can't fit into these, but I'm on like the last 2 snaps. So when I almost took my wife's HTO hat, she's got it like maybe one over, like a little kid wears it, where it's like all the way over. And I had to like adjust it and then pull it all the way. It was a little shocking. So I left her hat alone. Plus, she told me it would smell if I wore it. And so we didn't do that. But yeah, Tommy and I played golf yesterday, which is why I'm in a hat today. Long story short. And Tommy got to see firsthand my golf game, which is not up to speed, but it's all right. It's all right. I've got a.
Hey, you had a chance to get out and play some golf. So that
I got like
the important thing.
I got like a 4 beer handicap. So, it's good. We're all right. But it was fun. It was enjoyable. I was a little concerned about the weather, but it was nice. It's been good to get this rain. It's a little chilly outside. It's a little shocking to the system. I had a kid's soccer game last night. And I don't know. It's like 60 degrees and windy. And everyone's looked like it was 30 degrees. Like everyone's in blankets and everything. I'm like, what's happened to us? Like it only took like 1 week of warmer weather to totally throw out the window an entire winter of acclimating to this cold. But I'm here for it. I hate the cold. 2 stories, Tommy, that we did not get to yesterday. And they were weekend developments in the college basketball recruiting world. And we'll start with Mackenzie Mbako because we were sort of waiting on that for KU. And we saw Ernest Uday transfer out. And we thought, or at least I did, I was like, well, I wonder if that was like a little acknowledgement from self to help Uday. But Mbako goes to Indiana and not to Kansas, which is cool for Indiana. It sucks for Kansas. I don't know what it means, right? Like when they lost Uday, I became concerned. I'm still concerned. And I don't even know that I thought Mbako was going to help the loss of Uday that much because the recruiting, profiles I see on him, he's not an interior guy. It doesn't sound like anyway, even though he's big. I don't know what's going to happen now, but KU, like for me, was going to be a prohibitive favorite. And now I do have some concern. They've got plenty of time to go get some experience out of the portal. And I think ultimately that's what they'll do. And then they'll be fine, but they still got to do it. I think you finish out this class with some really old, experienced players that can spell minutes and not do you harm if they have to come into the game. And I think there are plenty of those kinds of players out there. And hopefully KU can get probably 2 of them. Don't you think, Tommy? Now at this point, they kind of need, you kind of need a backup player for the 4 and the 5. Maybe there's somebody that can do that, but they probably are 2 guys short underneath there.
Yeah, they're a little thin. And I would definitely say a backup big and then a wing that you feel confident in, maybe even starting. And if not starting, maybe being, very quickly off the bench. That's kind of, I think, what they're looking for right now. It was a big blow to not get Mackenzie Mbako. And that was a conversation that we had on Friday about how, at least I felt relatively confident that he was going to be a Jayhawk. And I think, a lot of folks in the KU world, they were confident too. I think the coaching staff was confident. And then Indiana came through in the last minute. I think it's an NIL thing. I think that they came through with, an offer that was enticing enough for Mbako to come over. I think it was enticing to potentially play for Mike Woodson, be a star at Indiana where he, and not that he wouldn't have been a star at Kansas, but you've got other talented players on that roster where Indiana doesn't quite have that level of talent, from top to bottom on the roster. So I think that was a big part of it too. But yeah, this is certainly a blow to Bill Self because they are thin now. You feel confident about your point guard. You feel confident about your 4 and KJ Adams. You feel confident about obviously your 5 and Hunter Dickinson. But there are still some holes there, and there's not a lot of depth, especially at the 4 and 5. So, KJ Adams has shown, he did it all last season, that if Bill Self needs to play him at the 5, he can do it. So you would think that he would be the primary backup, more than likely at the 5 for Hunter Dickinson. But what happens at the 4 if KJ Adams has to go to the 5? So that's a big question mark. There are still some really talented players out there left in the portal. I know there is a guy that is, I think his name's Grant Nelson. He's a super senior from North Dakota State. That's a big that I think that KU will be targeting. Arthur Kaluma from Creighton is somebody that I know the Jayhawks are targeting. There are some other names out there, but they've got to get to work on that.
Well, they've got a big opportunity for players like that because, and for me, it's more of a concern to me at the 4-5 than it is at the 2-3, let's say, because if DeJuan Harris is healthy, he's just kind of like not going to come off the floor, which is fine. But because they have 3, 4, 5 guys that, I just feel like 2 of them are going to step up in that 2-3 spot. I don't know that they like physically don't have anybody, right? With losing 3 centers basically off the roster this offseason. We know KJ Adams can play the 5 if they need him to, because he has before, but you don't want him to have to. So I think there's still 2 bodies down low short. Like that's got to be the priority here. And there's opportunity for minutes. Now, if they can go get somebody basically that would be their Kevin McCullough, that's going to be a tremendous opportunity too, because I do think they still have a pretty big need there. But again, like for that spot, for me, I'd rather see like a defensive specialist who can spot up shoot than some, elite level. Like let me put it this way. If they could, let's say it's Kevin McCullough, just for the sake of this argument. Let's say it's Kevin McCullough returning or somebody just like him or Mbako for their chances to win next year. I'm going to take McCullough or that as far as making them a team to win a national title, like immediately if we're looking at that. Now, Mbako's ceiling is higher than really anybody's, right? Like there's not ceilings like that don't exist very often. But I still think even in losing Mbako, which is not a good thing, it's a bad thing. But even in doing that, I think there is room for this team to be the best version of itself if they can go find that kind of player. But now all of a sudden they also have these needs down low. And I think they need two people, because they don't. Maybe it's not 2. Maybe it is just 1 if they can go find a really experienced, versatile big. Then maybe you do only need 1, and you've got essentially a 3-man rotation at the 4-5. But that position gets injured a lot. Like I don't know. I think they still need a little depth there.
Yeah, so I know that you are prioritizing experience over the talent level, and I get that. And typically, I might agree with you on that. I just feel like they already have a lot of experience in DeJuan Harris and KJ Adams and now Hunter Dickinson. So I would have rather had the
And
potential
Timberlake.
ceiling. Exactly. I would have rather had the potential ceiling talent-wise of Mbako rather than a Kevin McCullough next season. Not that McCullough, is a bad player by any means, but
Big
I think
picture, I agree.
Right. And so I just think that, if you're going to go out and Bill Self has got to go and find somebody that can, maybe fill a variety of roles. I think maybe somebody that's versatile is important. Somebody that, can play that 4 when KJ Adams is at the 5, but can also slide back into the 3 and be a wing if necessary. That's going to be important. And so I'm not necessarily thinking that you have to have this tremendous amount of experience to be successful and fit into the current system that Bill Self has. I'm just thinking you need to be versatile. You need to be able to eat up minutes and be able to, fill a variety of roles, because that's kind of where the Jayhawks stand right now.
I just think there's starting minutes left. That's my thing. Like, and remember, right? And this is why I think that experience is in the short term to win a national title right now better. How many players are KU returning on this roster from last year?
2.
Exactly.
A grand total of 2.
So they have all these talented players last year, and KU is going to get attacked from 2 fronts in that regard. 1, they're either NBA ready like Grady Dick, which happens, or 2, they're like MJ Rice and it wasn't working, so they're going to leave. And that's my point. Like, yes, it's great to accumulate as much talent, and absolutely Mbako would have been a better scenario. Getting Mbako would have been better than not getting Mbako. So don't misunderstand what I'm saying. What I'm saying, though, is for KU to win a national championship this year, getting another player is, for this year only, potentially as good as getting Mbako. Now, you'd like to have Mbako and envision a scenario where he stays more than 1 year, or he's so good that he's a one and done, right? Both of those are, but that's not always the case. And probably more often than not, as we move forward through this transfer portal era for KU, as we saw with the other two centers, as we saw with MJ Rice, those guys probably aren't going to be here more than 1 year anyway, unless they're good enough to go to the NBA. The
Right.
days of getting 5-star guys to be at KU more than 1 year are probably pretty numbered, because you're getting attacked from two fronts. You're getting attacked from this tremendous talent not having the opportunity they need, or they're so good they go to the NBA draft.
And I just wonder, was there a commitment from KU to Mbako that he would be able to slide right in and start right away? You know, Bill Self and freshman, it's always a little questionable. You know, he started Grady Dick right away. Grady Dick is an NBA caliber talent. That doesn't always happen. You know, there are a lot of times where he doesn't always trust freshmen. And we talked to Brian Haney about this before, where, you know, you get into conference play, deeper into seasons, and his rotation tightens up. He'd rather have guys out on the court he trusts rather than a high talent ceiling. And so I wonder if there was that kind of commitment, that Mbako knew that he was going to get the minutes right away. Maybe that commitment was there from Indiana more than it was from Kansas, where, you know, Mike Woodson and the staff said, you're going to be able to come in here and be a star right away. We can commit to you that you will start.
Sure.
And I don't know if that was the case at Kansas.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I agree. And Nicholas Timberlake is 6'4". You know, he could probably play some three. I would have to look back at his, you know, scouting report to see if that's something he did at Towson. He probably did there. Can he do that in the Big 12 at 6'4"? I don't know. How tall is Kevin McCullough? He's probably not just a whole lot taller.
Probably around that 6'4", 6'5", I would think.
And he obviously was great there. So McCullough's 6'6", so he's got 2 inches on him. So they've got some options and they've got some talent. It's fine that Kansas isn't getting all of these 5-star guys. That's not going to be how it works anymore. They're probably going to be a nice mix, which they still are, right? Of getting really, really talented high school players, but also really, really bought in players who want to win titles. And just remember the last, and Joe Yesufu did this too. So, you know, it doesn't always work out the way you'd hope, but Remy Martin, I'd say that worked out pretty well for KU, right? Took a minute, but he got there when he got healthy. Kevin McCullough, I'd say that worked out pretty well for KU. Those kinds of players are going to be as much a part of what KU does in every offseason as McDonald's All-Americans and as like Hunter Dickinson's, right? You know, they're not going to get every top transfer, but they're going to get a lot of the top transfers. But what they'll get some of, which will help them win titles, is really experienced, high-level specialty players. And that will help. And they're going to go, I'm telling you, they're about to go get 2 more of them. And you're going to have a really experienced rotation that's going to be just fine. I think there's enough there because Dickinson adds so much scoring at his position that, yeah, we'd like to think of like all these points and things and who's going to shoot. Their necessity to have what they needed last year is a little bit less because they're going to get offense out of the 5. Right? Dickinson's going to provide offense. And we assume KJ Adams will continue his offensive developments. And I think we'd all like to see, right, DeJuan Harris become a 12 to 14 point a game scorer because we know how much better they are when he does that. Just get some experience and make sure they're great defensively. Get some size. Now, priority one is to go get some size.
Build some depth, you know, be able to have a couple of additional guys that you feel confident in going to from the bench. And I would argue, and I think that anybody that, you know, observes college basketball would probably argue that if you knew that you were going to get Hunter Dickinson, who was the top coveted prize in the transfer portal, but you knew that you were going to lose out on Ernest Uday, Zuby Ejiofor, and Mackenzie Mbako was not going to come to Kansas, you would still probably take that, right? Like at least I would. I think so. That I would still probably take that.
With the way I wouldn't take it every year, but I would take it this year.
Right. And the bottom line for me too is that the job's not done. Like the portal is not closed, right? And so it's not like Bill Self and his staff are just sitting back and saying, hey, we're good, we're done, we got Dickinson. Like they're going to go to work and they're going to add a couple of more pieces. I just don't know how effective those pieces will be. But regardless, I still feel like even though it's disappointing you don't land Mbako and you lose Uday and Ejiofor, you still feel, I think, fairly solid with the way the roster is made up for next season.
Yeah, I do too. Oh, I definitely feel so. Like I said, losing Mbako to me doesn't take them from the third favorite to win a natty to the 10th, right? I think they're going to be fine because I fully expect they're going to go get somebody. There are plenty of guys left in the portal. Kenny Poto is an example. He's no longer in there because he's coming back to Wichita State. Let's take a break. That's where we're going to talk next. Poto returns. And man, I think this is a really big deal for Wichita State. Let's talk about that when we return. We've got more to come. We've got a Wichita State Hall of Fame induction. We've got some drama between KU and K-State and state money and stadium funds and all that kind of political nonsense that we'll get into a little bit later as well. 869-1240, it's Albracht and Castor. It's a Tuesday edition of Sports Daily. We'll be right back.
Your phone call is welcome. 869-1240. Sports Daily on 97.5 and 1240. KFH, Wichita's #1 sports talk radio. By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Apple. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at apple.com/TNC.
What's holding you back from learning the language you've always wanted to know?
Too hard.
Takes too long.
Not with Babbel. Babbel's lessons take just 15 minutes a day, and they're fun.
Fun isn't hard.
Right. Babbel's interactive lessons, podcasts, games, and more make it fun and engaging, so you don't realize you're learning a language, but you are. Choose from topics like travel, business, relationships, and more. You'll learn what matters most to you. In 3 weeks, you're able to start having conversations.
Just 3 weeks? Even better.
Since Babbel's lessons are designed by language experts and voiced by real native speakers, you'll get the accents just right and be able to carry on conversations with confidence.
Learning a language with Babbel doesn't take long.
And with Babbel, it isn't hard.
It's perfect.
And now try Babbel for free by texting radio to 64,000. Text radio to 64,000. That's R-A.
The commercials are over.
Yo, I haven't got all day.
869-1240.
Time to get busy.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily here on this Tuesday edition. Glad to have you with us here. 869-1240, the IHOP hotline, always open. We're talking a little college basketball recruiting. We mentioned Mbako going to Indiana. Chris on YouTube says, tough break on losing out, but Self is the best coach in college basketball. He'll figure it out for sure. Rock chalk. I think he'll figure it out. I'm not terribly worried. It's a loss, but no big deal. They'll just move on to the next guy. I think they're going to go get some players that will really help them win next year. It just emphasizes the need underneath. One player that was in the portal at that spot that is no longer in the portal at that spot is Kenny Poto, who returns. We wondered if this was possible. We'd seen Poto at Paul Mills' introductory press conference. We know he'd been working out with the team, and some reports, including by Taylor Eldridge over the weekend. Poto, I think Draft Express had it too. Poto is returning to Wichita State. That leaves 2 scholarships for them, but it adds, Tommy, a player back on the roster. Like if we had to talk about all the players under Paul Mills, to me, Kenny Poto is the most interesting because Mills has had some bigs. I think Poto's versatility is unique. I love the skill set of Kenny Poto. And again, we don't know what kind of offense Paul Mills is going to run. He says it adjusts by the players, but if it's similar to what it was, to Roberts the last few years, I think somebody like Poto could be really interesting. We know he can shoot. He is, he's not a traditional center, but he's a guy that's versatile in a unique way that I'm more intrigued by him, Tommy, than I have been for any other Shockers with their potential to play for Mills. I'm really, really excited about this.
Yeah, this is a big deal in a variety of ways. I think it's important for the fan base because there's a little bit of familiarity there. And we know that Colby Rogers will be playing for Paul Mills, but he doesn't have any experience up to now to this point as a Shocker. He sat out last season. Quincy Ballard didn't play a ton, and I know he's returning, but really Poto is one of the main guys that you can look at and say, okay, like there's somebody for the fan base to get behind that's familiar, that the fans know already. It's not a completely brand new team, but I do think that pairing him up with Jacob Germany, that's going to be important too. And I don't know exactly what the plan will be for them. Is it one of them starts and the other one backs up, or will Poto play the 4 and Germany the 5? I don't exactly know the way that's all going to come down, but Germany had quite a bit of success at UTSA and averaged, over 10 points a game. I think he averaged 7 or 8 rebounds a game, so he was effective for UTSA last season. So I don't know if the plan from Mills is to play these 2 guys in tandem with one another, or really how it's all going to pan out. But I do think that this is an important piece in a variety of ways for Wichita State.
It is. And I don't think it matters yet. I think we need to see how Quincy Ballard bounces back first, if he's healthy. Because if he's healthy, he's definitely going to be a traditional 5, right? Like that's the kind of player he is. I think Poto and Germany can both be versatile enough to run it a little bit and play the 4. We haven't seen Germany, but that's the indication I get. Poto, we know can, right? And now you've got like a Twin Tower situation, which will be unique and hard to match and be difficult to match up with, to have 2 guys of that size. And you've got to adjust on the other end of that too. But I think what we're seeing for Paul Mills is a roster that's plenty talented and a roster that will compete in the AAC next year. Poto sort of completes that. Now we'll see what else comes in, but the caliber of player that is now on the Wichita State roster is high. I think you've got a collection of players. And when we talk about Harlan Beverly and Ronnie DeGray and Bijan Cortez and Quincy Ballard for that matter too, you only really get one free one anymore as far as transfers. So I think you're building a foundation now of players that will grow within the program too. Like, it's harder for those guys to transfer out. So, and we don't know right? About I shouldn't say, we don't know yet about Ronnie DeGray. We'll have to see what his transfer status is. But either way, you've got guys that are going to be there a while, and that's going to be good and important too. So I like it. They've still got a couple spots to fill. I'd love to see him go attack high school that way, and get some talented young players. But, whatever it looks like in this first year, transfers were going to be a big part of it. There was no question about that. Now we'll see the rest of it. But I think this roster, as it currently stands with Poto, is a team that will be in the top 3 or 4 of the AAC. And we go back to all the conversations we had begrudgingly to some degree, Tommy, quite frankly, with a lot of Shocker fans. But this is what we expected. This was the expectation from us. And right now, on paper, the expectations being met. I've got no issues. I'm excited about this roster. I think it's good.
Yeah, look, I think it'd be a lot different if you only had brand new incoming players that, maybe didn't star at their previous schools, like Harlan Beverly, Ronnie DeGray, Bijan Cortez, these guys that were playing reserve minutes for programs like Oklahoma, Missouri, Miami. There's a lot of unknowns with them, right? Like, can they take that next step in a program like Wichita State? But being able to bring in some consistency and some familiarity with Kenny Poto, it helps bridge the gap a little bit, I think. And then, like I mentioned before, with Jacob Germany and the skill set that he brings to the table and the success that he had at his former program, that helps it out a lot, I think. Like, you don't have to necessarily just lean on these newcomers that haven't shown up to this point in their careers that they can have a leadership role on a basketball team. I'm not saying they can't do it. I think they certainly can. We just don't know that at this point. And so having a mix of newcomers and returners, that's extremely important to build that familiarity and to be able to connect with the fan base. I like it. I was incredibly excited when I found out that Poto was coming back to Wichita State, because I do think that the opportunity is there for him to take the next step in his career.
Don't you think everybody's a new player, though, with a new coach? Like, it feels to me like even returners are new players when a new coach and a new style comes in. So, I mean, like, the talent is like, just, I feel like a base level of talent foundationally is critical, because even Kenny Poto, like right now, I mean, Kenny Poto is as much of a new player as Jacob Germany, right? Like, if everything's changing now, he's not to the fan base and to, the great facilities and all those things. And that does have some advantage. We know he's comfortable here. But everybody's new. And so getting a talent level, a talent floor is important. And I think that we're seeing that right now. ASMUS didn't happen. And I think it's very easy to understand why it didn't happen. But other than ASMUS, like, that was the one where everybody looked to try to, like, okay, they're going to be able to. I still think, high level players and recruits are coming for Wichita State for all the reasons we've talked about so many times. But we're going to have to give it some time to build a foundation to do it. It is very, very important that Wichita State is good this year and builds on momentum and starts to fill the arena again and gets the NIL excited and the base excited. Because if they can be good right away, then it's just going to be a domino effect. And we're going to see these high-level players come in. And it's really exciting to think about and consider. And I just think everything has gone very well. Again, on paper, we haven't seen anything. But on paper, I'm satisfied. Like, I'm happy with this. And I think Mills and staff have done a really good job with this class and putting this group together. And now we'll see how they attack those last 2 spots. I think they could do just about anything. I think they have like supreme versatility and availability to do whatever they want.
And look, I think you're right. On paper, I'm okay with it. I don't have an issue with the way that this class and this team has been built on paper. I just wonder how much leeway at the beginning of the season do we give to potential growing pains and then trying to find their way and that sort of thing. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but how much leeway and patience can be afforded to Paul Mills in this program if the priority, which you just mentioned, and I don't disagree with you, is you've got to try to get that momentum back and re-engage and fill the arena and all of that. How much leeway can be afforded to them?
I think some. I think more than, with a new coach, I think you're going to get a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. I think it's important that they handle the exhibition type games well, and then you'll be okay. Because it is hard to know, but I do think fans in general are going to let it breathe. Now, are they going to let it breathe into, December and January? No, probably not. But in October, maybe into November, yeah, I don't think it'll have too much of an impact. But again, I think that I just think it's very unlikely that Wichita State struggles mightily early on. I don't think that was going to happen no matter, who was coaching, because I think they're always going to be able to get some level of talent. This is a more talented class, than we've seen in this transfer era, at least by what we know about on May 16th, right? Obviously, Jaquan Walton was a tremendous talent. And James Rojas was a tremendous talent. Like, you could see quickly, like, where those guys were, top level recruits and why, and all those things. Like, it was like, okay, these are really good players, but we didn't know that before they started playing. This group's a little different, right? The floor seems a little higher. Is the ceiling as high? I don't know. That's what we got to find out, right? That we've got to find out if the players are to that level. And I think that they probably are. But
yeah,
we still do have to see that.
And we mentioned it multiple times before that it was very clear, and at least obvious to me, I don't know about anybody else, but it was obvious to me that the strategy for Paul Mills was to go and find players that had a fairly high ceiling, but for whatever reason, it kind of goes back to what we talked about in the last segment, that they had talent, but they weren't getting an opportunity to star at their previous schools. That's really the priority. And so I think that profile of a player you can apply to Bijan Cortez and Harlan Beverly and Ronnie DeGray. Like there became a pattern in the kind of player that Paul Mills wanted to attract. That's great, because a lot of these guys were very highly regarded coming out of high school when they went to their programs. Now the question becomes, what does the development part from Paul Mills and his staff look like? And can they help these players develop and take the next step in their careers? And that's where I'm most interested in watching this program develop, are these players that were highly regarded coming out of high school, didn't really get a chance to shine at their previous schools, and seeing what kind of development Mills and his staff can take with them.
But weren't you the most confident when we talk about like the resume and the criteria for Mills coming in? Weren't you the most confident in that ability?
Sure.
Right. To
I think that's why he's got the job.
Yeah. And so like the questions became, coming from Will Roberts, well, can you get what's going to be necessary consistently talent wise into Wichita to play for Wichita State? Can you rally the fan base and get everybody excited? Those are the questions. Like coaching ability, I think Paul Mills was at the top of most lists of available candidates for a reason, right? The Baylor tree, all the success we've seen coming out of the Baylor tree, all those things. So it's exciting. Good place for Shocker basketball. We'll see how they finish out the class. Really, KU and K-State, all these classes still have some rounding out to do. Speaking of KU and K-State, when we come back, we'll talk about a story that is interesting, and we'll approach it, I think, in a responsible way. But we'll tell you what's been going on with some stadium funding there in Lawrence. Do want to tell you that you can enjoy all your favorite sports like never before at BetMGM. Sign up using code Jacob and receive up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. When you register with BetMGM, you'll get instant access to a variety of parlay selection features, live betting options, player props, and daily boosted odds specials. And with BetMGM at your fingertips, every play and every game matter more than ever. Find out why BetMGM is the king of sportsbooks. BetMGM and GameSense reminds you to play responsibly and offer resources to help you make appropriate choices. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 years of age or older to wager. Kansas only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. First online real money wager only. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets. Bonus bets expire 7 days from issuance. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. All right, welcome back, everybody. All right, Sports Daily, Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. Tommy, before we get to a Wichita Sports Hall of Fame induction off the top, story that caught your eye yesterday, stirred up by our K-State insider and buddy Tim Fitzgerald. Give us the backstory here, and we'll sort of dive in a little bit.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So, of course, we know, and this has been public news for a while now, that KU Athletics, they are working on a renovation for Memorial Stadium, for the football stadium there at KU. I believe it's a $330 million overall project. And so our buddy Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com does his daily delivery videos. Did a video the other day. I believe I don't know. It was either on Friday or Saturday. Did a video where he was critical of the University of Kansas and the athletic department in the way that they are getting funding, receiving funding for this stadium, saying that it's public tax dollars in part that the university is utilizing to build this stadium. Meanwhile, the Kansas State University, for all of their projects, they're using private dollars, donors, and that sort of thing.
Money.
So that was the controversy. It's not the only controversy surrounding this new stadium renovation. There were some students with the student newspaper at KU that wrote an editorial in opposition to it. So there are certainly some things going on with this stadium, but I know that Tim Fitzgerald, unhappy with the way the funding is being allocated. One thing about our buddy Fitz, he definitely is vocal on Twitter. He's gotten into it with a couple of state politicians about all of this. And so that's kind of the drama going on right now.
It's interesting. And we'll have a chance on Thursday. We'll get more into the details of it from Fitz. I think at the surface level, because these kinds of stories, I've got to put on like my other hat to really dig into. So I'm not going to be overly detail oriented here because I haven't read it yet. You just pointed me to it this morning. But I think in general terms, it brings up a discussion of public money, right? However it comes, whether it's state or federal. And there's some confusion in this story about which it is. It sounds like it is a federal grant given to the state of Kansas. That's still public money, right? Federal grants come from our tax dollars. So does state money. It's your money, right? Like it doesn't matter to me if it's federal or state. It's still tax dollars, which matters. I hold that stuff to a high importance. And so, it comes into play here on these types of things. And if you see this story, some people are pointing out that the grant portion of this is being used for non-athletic parts of this, but Fitz's point is it's all one project. What difference does it make? I think that's an important point because even if it is grant money, it's still tax money, right? It's not like the government can maybe they can, but it's not like it's just like brought up out of thin air. Like we have a real debate and serious situation happening with a debt ceiling and all this stuff. Like tax dollars don't just appear, they're tax dollars. And so, at the surface level, I think as you discuss and look into this, it's should that sort of money be being used for college athletics? And I think that is a hard pill for people to swallow. And I think that it's very understandable why there are a lot of people that would say, hang on a minute, my tax dollars don't need to go to fund your football stadium. I don't go to school there. I don't have any kids going to school there. You're probably not going to win an argument that this is like driving the state's economy to renovate the KU football field. That's a bit of a stretch and probably a little bit different than if, say, you got the Chiefs to come across the border, right? I think those are two very different things as far as economic drivers. Might drive the local economy in Lawrence, probably will, right? But does it drive our local economy in Wichita? I don't know. So I get it. I get I get that part of it. I also get the impact that go ask the University of Alabama if Alabama football drives the state's economy, because the answer is absolutely and unequivocally yes. So I get it. I totally understand both sides, and that's where the discussion comes into play. I would much rather see that money come from private donors. Absolutely. There's no question about it. I think that's better for everybody, right? Then it's not my tax money or your tax money. It's somebody else's money that they can spend however they want. They're two very different things, right? I get it. I get both sides of this.
I know that there is a pretty large, wealthy donor base with the University of Kansas. The issue has been they have attempted to renovate the stadium, build a new one a couple of different times, and they've never been able to raise the money, at least the amount of money necessary for it. At the time, in previous attempts, the football program was so terrible that it was really hard to convince those really wealthy donors that was a good place to put their money. It was kind of the which came first, the chicken or the egg kind of mentality. And the argument was you invest in the stadium, you're going to be able to attract better players, and then the program is going to get better. And then I think a lot of the donor base said, no, we want the program to be better before we want to invest our money. Yep. So that was the rub in previous iterations of this. My only question, and I would love to, we'll talk to Fitz about it on Thursday. My only question is, if this was a federal grant that's being allocated, is it a use it or lose it kind of scenario? Is it a scenario where the money's already been allocated, and if you don't use it for something, it goes away? This is a little bit different than going to the taxpayers and saying, we want you to vote and pass a bond issue like what happens in high schools, all that sort of thing. More than the money's already there. It's already been allocated as a federal grant. You don't use it. Does it just go away? I don't know the answer to that.
The easy flip side to that is I'm sure that if we thought real hard, we could find better ways to use $50 million. You know what I mean? Like we've got plenty of, deficit areas in the state budget where you would have, like, I saw special education brought up. And I know this because I'm a parent now and I hear this concern from parents. Would you rather, as a taxpayer, see $50 million used to fund special education and help those kids in public schools? Or would you rather see it, at a football stadium? I think for a lot of people, that's a really easy answer. And so that's where the discussion comes in. And I'm not saying that as some definitive statement. I think big picture, there are discussions that need to be had on how to make the state a more it's a really interesting topic. And we're not going to just surface area hot take this thing. We want to have a thoughtful discussion about it because it does impact everybody. And I do think it's interesting from all sides. We're going to take a quick break. Paul Savage comes in. We got a Wichita Sports Hall of Fame induction to do next, and we'll get more Sports Daily on the other side. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Hour number 2 coming up.
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody, to Sports Daily here on KFH. Whether you're listening or watching, we are glad to have you with us here on this Tuesday. Tuesdays and Thursdays this time of year, we induct the newest members of the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. So many great inductions so far, and a few more to go here. We welcome in Paul Savage to the program. I'm Jacob Albracht. Savage, how are you today?
I'm good, big boy. How you doing? Are you doing okay?
Yeah, we're doing good. Today we've got Jeff Jensen, Paul, joining us to be inducted. I'll let you introduce, and we'll get right to it here.
Well, this is really an honor and a privilege to have one of, I was going to say one of Wichita's greatest male bowlers, but, he may be the greatest. He's got more City League championships, so I'll get to that here in a minute. But, Jeff is a special guy, by the way. Jacob, I know you'll appreciate this. You have a love for baseball history that I know you do. And he's the grandson of Woody Jensen, the great Pittsburgh Pirate. And Woody, of course, was a longtime bowling pioneer here in the city of Wichita. Woody is also in the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame from, about 18 years ago. But anyway, Jeff is one of the best, if not the best, male bowler in the history of Wichita. He's a longtime Rose Bowl West employee, and Jeff was an 8-time, let's count that up, 8-time Wichita Bowler of the Year in 1987, 1990, 1993, 94, 95, 96, 2001, and 2002. Whew, I need to take a breather. But he was also inducted into the Wichita Bowling Hall of Fame, and he's already been inducted into the Kansas Bowling Hall of Fame. So it just seems perfect to have Jeff Jensen today going into the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. Jeff, I'm exhausted after that introduction. How are you? Whoops, I guess we don't have Jeff. Jacob, we'll get back to that.
All right, we're connecting with Jeff here. As Paul gets us Jeff on the line, we make that introduction. It's interesting, the rich history of bowling in this town, whether it comes from Wichita State, who's always good and has, so many years of experience. It has been a really interesting thing to learn about as we make our way through. As I moved here, and people would tell me, bowling, the history here with bowling is great. And I just, okay, like I don't get it. And then it was very quickly relayed to me. And, it has been a fascinating thing to see. Never would have expected that. But, here we are, and bowling's a big part of it. And, it's fun. And I love seeing and hearing the history of bowling here, because it's not something that, normally would stand out for me as we get into it. So I believe we're still tracking down Jeff for his induction. So let's do this if we can. Let's take a quick break. We'll get connected with Jeff. We'll come back and we'll induct him into that Sports Hall of Fame. Paul, do we have Jeff?
We're working on it. Sorry, we've had a slight glitch. And by the way, don't blame Max for this one. This was me. I mean, come on. You know what a screw up I can be at times, Jacob, and that was on me. Don't yell at Max. It was me. So anyway, but we're working on getting him on, and we'll get him taken care of, because it's important that we get a guy like this inducted. This is a really
let's do this then.
Okay.
Let's switch gears. We'll get to Jeff in the next segment. So let's just continue on with the regular edition of Sports Daily as we bring Tommy back in. Fellas, we're going to switch gears and take a sharp right to the NBA playoffs. And tonight we get the start of a series that I am really fascinated by. Lakers Nuggets. Nuggets are 6-point favorites at home. I'm not going to touch this thing betting. I don't think it's going to be difficult to attack right away. This is one I got to see a little basketball. I don't know what to expect in this series. I'm fascinated by it. I think the most impactful player on the floor is going to be Anthony Davis. What does he bring to the table? It was enough with him not bringing it in every single game to get through Golden State. How do we compare Denver to that? Denver has been this juggernaut that nobody wants to talk about, Tommy. And it's not that we don't want to talk about. I don't know what it is, but it really feels to me like nobody believes in Denver, and they just keep proving it. Are they going to do it again here?
Well, the reason I think part of that is that the Lakers have historically owned Denver in the playoffs. Denver has an 8-25 record against the Lakers in the playoffs all time. I mean, 8-25. Are you kidding me? So there is historically, this history that the Lakers have in just dominating Denver. And so it's going to be really important. It goes back to what we've talked about multiple different times about how the pressure is on the organization of Denver to get over that hump, to be able to, they've got the ghost of the past in Los Angeles that just beats them up and down, basically every time they face off in the playoffs. It's different this year because Denver is the number 1 seed. They are on paper a better basketball team all season long than the Lakers have been. Now the Lakers have obviously one of the greatest of all time in LeBron. They've got Anthony Davis. They're riding momentum right now, right? They took down the Warriors. They feel really good about where things stand for them right now. But man, the Nuggets have that pressure to be able to, move away from the way that things had gone in the past and actually be able to take down a Lakers team that historically has beat them up really bad in the playoffs.
Well, it's interesting too, Paul, because I think this is probably it for this Lakers group, right? Like if they don't get it done now, I don't see it in its current iteration. And Denver, if they don't get it done now with Jokic, there probably will have other opportunities. Yet it feels like all of the pressure here is on Denver and not the Lakers, Paul. Like it's this weird dynamic that exists. The Lakers are the ones that are like, if they don't get it done now, I don't think that LeBron and AD, like it's not going to happen again. Denver could be back in this spot, for years and years and years. Yet it feels like Denver's the desperate team to win this thing.
I know. Isn't that weird? I mean, we went through an entire NBA season. Tommy and I believe we even talked about it at one point where we didn't think that. Now, this was a while back. I mean, this is probably midway through the season. You and I didn't think that the Lakers would make the playoffs. And if my memory serves correct,
they almost didn't.
Well, they almost did. I mean, but we talked about we didn't think they would, but we were wrong. But this is the Lakers, and this is one of the greatest players, if not the greatest player in LeBron James and AD. We talk about him. Now the question is, does he make it up the next down the floor the next set of series? I don't know. We don't know. We never know with AD what's going on with his body, whether he'll play. He'll probably try to get this stuff taken care of because this is the Western Conference Finals. But I'm stunned in a lot of ways that the Lakers are here. And yet, on the other hand, I'm not that stunned. So I really don't know where I'm at. I'm sitting on the fence with these guys. But I'm ready for a change. I'm ready for a change of pace. I'm ready for Denver to win this thing. They've got a couple of the great players in the NBA that probably don't get as much attention, obviously, as much as AD and LeBron James do. But it's going to be interesting. It's not going to be a cakewalk. I don't think that a lot of people think for Denver. When you have a player like LeBron James, there's a lot of pride involved in this team for him. There's a lot of him being able to see, I told you. It's not time to write me off yet. And he's probably right. I think it's going to be a whale of a series. It's the one of the two series that really has me fascinated. It's the one out of the two series that are left that I'm going to sit and actually watch quite a bit of it whenever it's on. It's going to be fascinating. But I think Denver pulls this thing out. They've got too much talent. They're a lot younger. Don't they pull this out? I think they do, Tommy.
Well, look, I think that part of it comes down to how do the Lakers attack stopping Jokic?
Well, there you go.
Do they put Anthony Davis on him to get started? I don't know. I mean, I think that at least logically would maybe be where I would start. If I'm Darvin Ham, I'm going to put AD on Jokic to at least get started. But I mean, keep in mind, Jokic is averaging basically a triple-double in the playoffs, right? And so that's a really, really, really tall task. I don't care if you're Anthony Davis or whoever you are. That's going to be really difficult to do. So I want to know what the Lakers' strategy is for trying to, at least, I don't think you're going to stop Jokic, but at least slow him down to a point to where you then feel like you've got a pretty good chance if you're the Lakers. I don't know if there's an easy answer to that.
No, I don't think there is. I heard somebody on Rome yesterday, and I didn't catch the guest name. It was some NBA insider, and he brought up a great point as far as Jokic goes. And it's like, you're not going to take him away or out of a game. But the point that this person was making, and I wish I could remember who it is. You can go back on the Odyssey app and listen. But it was that you got to just get Jokic tired, right? You got to wear him out throughout the course of the game so that at the end of the game, he can't kill you. And that makes some sense to me. When I look at this series, like, it's going to be, because I sort of pencil it in for Jokic, right? Like, you just can sort of pencil in the production. It'll be more about what the rest of the Denver roster does. And, I think that this is as healthy and as good as the rest of the Denver roster has been, which is why they're in this position in the first place. That's why, Paul, I agree. I like Denver in the series. But, man, I just keep having these flashes of when LeBron took down the Warriors in the finals. And it's this interesting dynamic with the Lakers where you've got two Hall of Fame caliber players in LeBron and AD. And for one of them, I think there's a pretty general consensus that he's still the most impactful player in the game. And AD, when he's healthy and engaged and fully going in a game. And you have the other who's in the conversation to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest, who's ever played the game. Even at an old age, can those two guys together get 4 wins? I mean, of course they can, right, Paul? Like, of course they could do this. And I'm just fascinated by all the little intricacies of this series. I think it's really hard to predict. I think each game is going to be really hard to predict because can you get top level ultimate performance out of LeBron and AD for 7 games? That may be a bit of a reach, but you only need it for 4 of the 7. So then it becomes, can you get it for 4 of the 7? And for Denver, is there a game where those two guys go off and play out of their minds and Denver still wins? That's sort of what I'm looking at. Like, will Denver win a game where LeBron and AD collectively are awesome? Because if they can do that, then I think the Lakers are toast. But if they can't, it becomes a question of, can the Lakers do that 4 times, Paul?
It's very interesting. And I think I would probably say no to your question, except we're talking about LeBron James. Anybody else in the league? No. Emphatically no. I don't think so. But we're talking about LeBron James. So I think we've got to say maybe it's possible. I think it could happen. And it's going to be, we got to look at it this way. You've had a full season, 75 plus games. You've had, correct me if I'm wrong, Lakers had a playoff, had a play-in. They had to play in to get into the tournament and into the playoffs. And this has been a long season because these games, these series have dragged out for the Lakers, and it's been a long, long season. How much is left? I mean, I would think that when you start thinking about, gosh, I'm just 2 teams away from another NBA championship, the heart starts beating, the legs get a little fresher, you get a little more rest, you get going. It's hard to say, but I sure can't write off the Lakers. Man, I wrote them off. Wrote them off in the play-in game. I wrote them off in the first round. I wrote them off with the Warriors. I've just about wrote them off every time I've turned around.
Yeah.
And now, am I ready, Jacob and Tommy, to write them off again? I don't know that I can say at this point, I don't think I'm ready to write them off.
It's the remarkable thing, Tommy, because to win a title, they're still going to have to, one, they're going to have to beat Denver, but they're probably going to also have to beat Boston. And so you're talking about like 8 wins away when those are likely the 2 teams you're going to have to do it against. And even if it's Miami, I mean, Jimmy Butler's going to make somebody's life not pleasant. Like this is, if the Lakers pull this off, and I don't think they're going to, but if they do, it will be as impressive as anything LeBron has done, because ultimately this is going to come down to LeBron, right? In his, when we talk about it, that's the thing we're going to talk about. I don't think it's there. It just seems like way too much. But man, if it does, where is that going to take some of the conversation with him, do you think, and that legacy and that favorite sports talk radio topic of all time, right? Jordan or LeBron. If he can pull out a title this year.
Yeah. I think, honestly, I think it elevates it even higher than what it currently is. And here's the reason why. The reason why is very, very simple. I mentioned one storyline to keep your eyes on, and that is who's going to try to slow down Jokic. Is it Anthony Davis or somebody else? That's one storyline to watch. The other storyline to watch is the Nuggets, you would believe, are going to want to push the pace nonstop in every game they play in this series. They're going to want to run up and down the court and play as fast as they can. If LeBron at the age of 38 can hang for an entire series against a Nuggets team that wants to push the pace and the Lakers get the win, I think that's why it elevates his legacy even more, because you're talking about 38-year-old LeBron James being able to hang with the Nuggets who want to push the ball up and down the court. And if the Lakers can win the series, then I think that's remarkable, right? So I think that's a massive storyline to keep your eyes on too. How fast do the Nuggets want to play, and can LeBron keep up?
Can I throw out a nutty storyline real quick and get your take on it real quick? Here's my nutty take. You really want to make a statement, and you're the Los Angeles Lakers. Man up LeBron on
words out of my mouth. I was just about to say, Paul.
Seriously.
Yeah, like here's my peanut-sized brain understanding of NBA strategy, right? So take this with a grain of salt. But if I'm LA and LeBron's got it in the tank, I've got LeBron on Jokic. And then if they win this series, I've got LeBron on Tatum. And I do not like – I want my biggest, most athletic, even at 38, motivated potentially – just make his life miserable for as long as you can, LeBron, and we'll give you breaks because it's going to take a lot of effort and energy to do it. But I like in my head when I'm thinking about how do I match up Jokic, I'm not putting Anthony Davis on Jokic because I need Anthony Davis fresh offensively.
No.
I'm putting LeBron on Jokic, and just like there aren't very many players in the league who are physically more imposing than Jokic. And LeBron is still the most physically imposing basketball player we have ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Put him on Jokic. Let's see if he can. I know that's asking a lot. It is. At least in spurts, though. Like if you want to disrupt, LeBron, go for it.
I think if you put LeBron on Jokic consistently, man, I think the Nuggets coast to the NBA Finals. Not that I don't think LeBron is capable of defending Jokic. I think in spurts is okay. But if you are consistently asking LeBron to try to slow down one of the best players currently in the NBA, a two-time MVP, man, I think the Nuggets win this series in 5 or in 6, maybe.
I love it. I love it. I was with you, Paul. As I've thought about that for a few days. And again, I'm going to like grain of salt because strategically in the NBA, the game reaches a level that's a little harder for me to like throw out hot take coaching strategies. But that's what I thought about too. Like, man, like what are they going to do with Jokic? And I'm like, who's their most athletic player? Like who physically matches up with anybody in the NBA? Who could literally defend anybody? I go LeBron. So we'll see. We'll get a good taste of it tonight. And it could change, by the way, game to game, which is another reason I think this series is going to be so interesting. Is because we may see one thing in one game and it totally flip upside down in another. I don't know. I don't think Denver's going to coast. I think that possibility certainly exists because they've been really, really, really good all year and into the playoffs. But game 1 is tonight. I cannot wait for it. It is by far the series of all the series. I was into Lakers Warriors for a different reason. As it became clear the Lakers were just going to outmatch Golden State, I sort of began to wonder about this series. And so I'm glad it's here. I'm glad we have it game 1 tonight, 7:30 tip. Of course, in Denver is there the 1 seed, and it will be very, very interesting to see. All right, let's take a quick break. 869-1240. The IHOP hotline is open. We'll reconnect with our Wichita Sports Hall of Fame inductee here and continue on Sports Daily. You got Albracht, you got Castor, you got Savage, Max Power producing. We're rolling on a Tuesday.
Call in and give us your thoughts.
It's absolutely crazy.
316-869-1240. This is your home for sports. 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Dude, you gotta hear this.
Go ahead. I think I want to hear this.
Sports Daily is on KFH.
All right, welcome back into Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht, Paul Savage, Tommy Castor. It's another Wichita Sports Hall of Fame induction. Jeff Jensen now, Paul, we have on the line, yes?
Ready to go and all set. And let me just give you the highlights of this guy's bio one more time, if you guys don't mind. Let me just set the table for this for anybody that's just joined Sports Daily. We're talking with one of the great bowlers of all time right here in the city of Wichita, Jeff Jensen, who's won 8 Bowler of the Years, guys, 8. Inducted into the Wichita Bowling Hall of Fame, inducted into the Kansas Bowling Hall of Fame. And it's a pleasure to welcome Jeff Jensen to the show. Jeff, congratulations on your impending induction to the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. People consider you one of the great bowlers of all time.
Well, thank you so much. That's a terrific honor to be in the Sports Hall of Fame with, boy, the likes of the list goes on and on. I mean, who do you start with? Barry Sanders, some of my racing heroes at 81 Speedway, just on and on and on. My uncle Mark Jensen, my grandfather, it's quite an honor. Thank you so much.
Jeff, I want to ask you, your bowling prime, is bowling a sport? Like, are you still out there bowling right now? And if so, what is a score you shoot for as you make your way through it?
I do still bowl, not quite as competitively as I used to, but because one reason is I'm actually working at the National Bowling Tournament here at the National Bowling Stadium in Reno, Nevada right now. So my schedule's, I'm doing a lot of work in the bowling industry still. I don't bowl a whole lot, but I still average in the 220s or so. So, every game that I shoot up, my goal is to shoot 300 every game. I mean, that's just how it is. You want to get a strike every single time.
One of the things that is obvious about your record and your history in bowling, particularly in the city of Wichita, 8 times you have been Bowler of the Year for the city of Wichita. That's amazing because there's some darn good bowlers. Dwayne Martin, 7. Ed Henning, I think 6 times was the Bowler of the Year. But you've got more bowling Bowler of the Year awards than anybody. What does that award mean to people? Because there's a lot of guys that win it once, maybe win it twice. but you guys like Ed Heading and Dwayne Martin, what does that say? How do you win so many competitive situations? Because let's face it, Wichita is no chump league. Wichita is no chump town to win a bowler of the year.
Right. Well, they changed it to where you had to bowl in a couple different houses, and they took a composite average, and that's how they figured out the points, right? And then when you rolled a 300 game or an 800 series or any kind of award score, that gave you a couple extra points. So, and the person with the most points at the end of the year was the one that won the bowler of the year. And also the city tournament was huge. Scratch singles and scratch all events. There was points awarded for that as well. So, and I was one of the lucky ones to grow up in a bowling center. My grandfather, as you guys I'm sure are well aware of, Woody Jensen, he built bowling centers well before I was even thought of. So my first steps were literally on a bowling lane. My mother was a fantastic bowler. My father was a fantastic proprietor and a mechanic on the machines and oil and lanes and stuff. And he taught me and my brother, and of course my sister as well. You know, we're just a big bowling family, and so that's how all that happened.
You know, I've always
here I am at the National Bowling Stadium working a shift in the back right now.
Wow. What a story. What a story with you and your family. And I mean, you have a grandfather and an uncle already in the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. It's just amazing to me. And other relatives, by the way, that are in the Wichita Bowling Hall of Fame and the Kansas Bowling Hall of Fame. It's well known throughout bowling communities that Wichita is one of the best, if not the best, single city with regards to bowling, how serious it's taken, how many great bowlers have come out. You know, Wichita State with what, 20-some national championships. Would you explain to me, because I'm not sure I understand, why Wichita?
Okay.
Why is Wichita that bowling city in the country?
I think it started with like Gordon Vatican. When he was the head coach there at Wichita State, he would recruit these kids from all over the country, right? And I mean, fantastic youth bowlers that were coming to college. He would recruit them, and then boom, look at them. They're winning tournaments. But those kids, I noticed when I was younger and winning all those Bowler of the Year titles, I noticed that those kids, they come to Wichita and they stay. They wouldn't just go to school and then go off and do life somewhere else. They pretty much stay there, and it has grown so immensely since then. You know, it's the destination. It's the place to go. If you're a young collegiate bowler, you want to go to Wichita because that's where it's at. It used to be when I was younger, you know, St. Louis was huge in bowling, Detroit. You know, there's several cities that are just huge in bowling. But Wichita really grew fast. And I think that was part of the reason, was because of Gordon Vatican. So, that would be my answer to that.
Well, that's amazing. And, of course, Gordon Vatican, a Wichita Sports Hall of Famer as well, with 20 – I think in it over 20 national championships. Jacob, it's just an amazing situation at Wichita State with what they've achieved in bowling. And now it's Rick Steelsmith, I believe, is now the head coach. Isn't that correct? I believe that is correct.
That's correct. Yeah.
And
he's a prime example of why that happened. You know, he came actually from Manhattan, Kansas, I believe. First, he went to Vincennes, I believe, and then his second year or third year of college, he moved to Wichita. And oh my goodness, Rick was like, back in my prime when I was bowling in Wichita, he was one of the guys to beat, boy, I'll tell you what. And if he hadn't injured his shoulder, he could have been Pete Weber, in my eyes. He had the ball speed. He had, you know, the turn on the ball and everything is super accurate. And, you know, he's one amazing individual.
Well,
so yeah, he's doing a fantastic job there as well. Yeah, didn't they win the? Yeah, they won the
Yep.
national championship.
Yeah,
this year.
another one. I just say another one. You know, like it's no big deal.
Right.
But yeah,
Oh,
just
I
another
know,
national
right.
championship. Well, it's wonderful, and we're so pleased now to see bowlers going into the Shocker Hall of Fame. Bowlers now going into the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame. I feel very proud that maybe we were a part of that, having recognized bowlers in the very first class of the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame in 2004. We had several bowlers in the inaugural class, including your grandfather, Woody Jensen, by the way.
I know. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So we're very,
Woody. I'll miss Woody, boy. I'll tell you.
Oh.
He was something else.
You know, I was part of
I learned a lot.
I was a part of the last guy to interview Woody on the radio, and I'm telling you, he was a dream interview. He was a dream interview. But anyway,
I bet he told you stories.
Oh my gosh, I just love the guy. Just love the guy. Well, we're at a point right now where an important part of this interview is now about ready to happen. Jacob, if it's all right, I'm going to go ahead and induct Jeff Jensen, if you don't mind. All right with you, Jacob? Let's go.
Let's get it.
All
Let's
right.
do it.
Well, this is always one of my favorite parts, and I just say how much we thank you for coming on Sports Daily on KFH and joining us and letting all of our listeners enjoy your stories and just know how great bowling has been to you and how great you've been for bowling. And at this time, we officially induct Jeff Jensen with all the rights and all the honors that pertain to this award. Jeff Jensen, you are officially inducted into the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. Congratulations.
Oh my goodness. You guys have no idea how much this means to me. This is one of the biggest honors of my entire life. So thank you so much.
Well,
I really appreciate it.
You're entirely welcome, and we're so proud to have you on. And Jacob, it's fun to see these kind of sports and get them on Sports Daily and get them some looks from people that may or may not know much about bowling. But we are all proud of the history of bowling in the city of Wichita. Oh my gosh, 20 plus national championships in bowling at Wichita State. Think about that for a moment. Plus all the great bowlers that we've had. It's really something special. And Jacob and Tommy, thanks so much for allowing me to get Jeff on the air with our show and get him inducted into the Hall of Fame. It means a lot to his family, and it means a lot to bowling in general in the city of Wichita. Thank you, fellas. Thanks for letting me do it.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Tommy, I appreciate you guys.
We appreciate you, Jeff. Appreciate your history and your willingness to come in here, even though we know you're very busy. And Savage does such a great job celebrating all the sports and, casting a wide net to these inductions. We're happy to be a part of it. And another Wichita sports legend in the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. All right, we're going to take a quick break here on Sports Daily. We'll come back. We've got plenty more to come. The IHOP hotline open, 869-1240. Keontae Johnson news to get to. Doc Rivers is out in Philadelphia one day later than probably we suspected it would happen, but maybe another potential landing spot for Adrian Griffin, who was just inducted into the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame, by the way. We'll have more Sports Daily right after this.
97.5 and 1240 KFH.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Babbel. Message and rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at babbel.com/TUC.
What's holding you back from learning the language you've always wanted to know?
Too hard.
Takes too long.
Not with Babbel. Babbel's lessons take just 15 minutes a day, and they're fun.
Fun isn't hard.
Right. Babbel's interactive lessons, podcasts, games, and more make it fun and engaging, so you don't realize you're learning a language, but you are. Choose from topics like travel, business, relationships, and more. You'll learn what matters most to you. In 3 weeks, you're able to start having conversations.
Just 3 weeks? Even better.
Since Babbel's lessons are designed by language experts and voiced by real native speakers, you'll get the accents just right and be able to carry on conversations with confidence.
Learning a language with Babbel doesn't take long.
And with Babbel, it isn't hard.
It's perfect.
And now try Babbel for free by texting radio to 64,000. Text radio to 64,000. That's RADIO to 64,000.
Visit Maximum Outdoor Equipment and Service in Andover for your Steel outdoor power tools this season. From legendary chainsaws and dependable trimmers to powerful blowers, hard-working hedge trimmers, power washers, sprayers, and more. Steel is designed for reliability and built for the long haul. Stop by Maximum Outdoor's newest location in Andover, your authorized local Steel dealer for your outdoor power tool needs. South of 21st and Andover Road or MaximumOutdoor.com.
Outdoor equipment.
I'm attorney Tyler Patterson. After an accident, one of the most costly mistakes people make is not hiring a lawyer. According to the Insurance Research Council, injury victims who hire a lawyer end up settling for 3 times more than they would if they handled the case on their own.
I'm attorney Gary Patterson. We also know all the games insurance companies play to get you to settle for as little as possible. You only get one shot to settle a claim. In a wreck, need a check? Call us today.
Yingling Aviation is a leader in the aviation industry in Wichita and around the world. We're innovating, leading, and hiring A&P mechanics and more. Receive up to a $2,500 sign-on bonus, competitive pay, health, dental, vision, and life insurance, 401k, paid vacation, and more. We offer a family atmosphere, creative culture, and the opportunity to advance in your career. Join the Yingling Aviation team and grow with us. All positions, apply online today at yinglingaviation.com while openings are still available.
DQ presents The Sound of Summer Calling. Hey, it's me, Summer. I know you're busy with Beach Days, Little League games, and all the other fun in the sun, but you gotta get to DQ ASAP Parato right now. The new Summer Blizzard menu is here, and it brought 5 iconic summer flavors, like new peanut butter puppy chow and s'mores. Oh yeah, it's back. Oh, that's my other line. Everyone is pumped about this new DQ Summer Blizzard menu. I gotta go. See you at DQ. Get it in the app. DQ. Happy tastes good.
Anywhere fans go to cheer on their team, there are behind-the-scenes MVPs, ensuring everything is game day ready. We see you, Joe, fixing seats so every fan can enjoy every game. And Allie, who keeps her stadium running smoothly from the moment the first game starts to the last play of the season. At Grainger, you're our MVPs, and we're always here for you, with supplies and solutions for every industry and 24/7 customer support. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I always wanted to learn Spanish, but I never thought I'd have the time. Then I discovered Babbel.
Babbel's lessons are fun. They only take like 10 or 15 minutes, and in 3 weeks, presto, you're starting to speak another language, like magic.
I love that Babbel's lessons aren't just robots talking. They're voiced by native speakers, so you get the pronunciation just right.
If you want to learn a language, there's no faster, easier, better way than
Babbel.
Babbel.
Babbel. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com. Babbel.com.
Are you kidding me? Gas prices are up again? Somebody has to do something.
Well, someone did. That's why I use Upside.
Upside? What's that?
It's a free app that pays you back real money for every gallon of gas or diesel you buy. I just earned 25 cents back on every gallon of this game.
Hold on. So the Upside app is free and you actually get cash back every time you use it? No strings attached?
Yep, it's awesome. Check it out. It only takes a couple of minutes to sign up.
Instead of just watching your dollars go into your tank, start putting money back into your wallet with the free app from Upside. With the price of gas today, it's big news and big money. To cash out of your Upside cash, just transfer it to your bank account, PayPal, or a gift card. Upside users have already earned over $200 million. Now it's your turn. Download the free Upside app and get cash back on every gallon of gas. Use promo code GOLF for an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first fill-up. That's code GOLF. Use code GOLF for an extra 25 cents per gallon back in your first fill-up. Cashback not available. Gas in New Jersey and Wisconsin.
It's time to get back to the sports talk.
All right, let's do this thing. Go!
Sports Daily is on KFH.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily here. You got Albracht, you got Castor, you got Savage on a Tuesday. Glad to be here with you. Last full segment here. Let's talk about Keontae Johnson. Andy Katz is reporting that Keontae Johnson, Tommy, is going to basically try the NBA here. So the report from Katz, the tweet says, Johnson just came through the NBA TV room and said he'll know next week if he's medically cleared. His plan is to stay in the draft and not go back to K-State. He's here in Chicago doing interviews and medical evaluations. There was some rumor that he could potentially return. I would think in seeing that report from Andy Katz that Keontae is probably pretty confident in his medicals. K-State was always an interesting, I don't want to call it a fallback, but an interesting option, because if for high profile players, this is going to be the case across the board. Same thing for Kevin McCullough, for instance. There are a large number of players now in college basketball who playing another year in college will be more financially beneficial than, testing NBA draft waters, not getting drafted, playing internationally. There's no doubt about it. Oscar Tshiebwe was the most recent example of somebody who probably did better for themselves financially. Hunter Dickinson is a great example at KU, a guy who could try to go to the draft, maybe doesn't get drafted, could absolutely play internationally, but the most lucrative opportunity comes at the college level. I think that's great for the game of college basketball. All that being said, if Keontae Johnson's medically cleared, I do understand his need to get to the pro level as quickly as he can, because he's just got a different Tommy medical situation than a lot of players are dealing with.
Yeah, I don't know how big that window of opportunity is for him at the professional level. And I don't know also what sort of, prospect he has to be an NBA player. He was a great college basketball player.
I think he's physically gifted enough to do it. I mean, he looks like an NBA player.
He's built for sure like an NBA caliber player, but I don't know if we're looking at, potentially a guy that can latch onto a roster and contribute for a couple of years, or if we're looking more of a guy that, could go and play overseas and make a good amount of money doing that. I don't really know the answer to that, but I do understand, regardless of what his prospects are, I do understand him wanting to go through that process.
Paul, don't you think though, and if in it, let's say like there wasn't this medical situation that has been well documented for Keontae Johnson over the years, he would be an example of a player. Like if he's not getting, mocked, and it's not like a sure thing that he gets drafted, which it might be a sure thing if he didn't have the medical situation, but let's pretend like he didn't. He would be the kind of player that could go back to K-State with the momentum they captured in the last season and probably really capitalize on an NIL, situation and opportunity. If that was the situation. Again, it's not. It's a little different for him. But if there wasn't the medical cloud hanging and it was this way, then he'd be a guy that you could keep in college basketball an extra year, which to me is a win for everybody that's a fan of college basketball.
Well, at this point, I think it's a win for him. I mean, let's face it, there's always questions when you have these kind of questions about your health, about your ability to play, about the stamina that you may have for an NBA season, which is really long. You've got to wonder. I'm not so sure that going into the NBA and taking one more year away from college football, college basketball is the thing to do. I don't know if that's right for this kid. Me, I would err on the side of caution and say I'll go back to K-State. And by the way, go back to that Baylor family tree that you guys talked about. And by the way, congratulations on Tommy and Jacob being under the Savage Baylor family tree. I want you guys to know in your life and broadcast, I don't mind you guys being from the Baylor tree that I'm from. So congratulations on that. But
didn't we find out Trey Wingo was in that tree?
Yeah,
Isn't he a Baylor guy?
Yeah, he's a Baylor guy.
Yeah.
Remember that? Yeah, that's exactly right. How about that, Tommy? Trey Wingo. Yeah, Trey Wingo. But anyway,
look, there's a number of trees that I can be a part of. The Baylor one is not one that comes to the top of my mind.
No, you come off of my tree. You're off of my tree.
The Savage
tree. Dropped you like a nut down onto the ground. There you go. But anyway,
that tree trunk is healthy. That tree trunk is healthy.
Oh, that's it. We're gonna make those kind of jokes now, huh? Thanks a lot.
Hey,
okay.
Get me a chainsaw and I will go to town on that Baylor tree.
Well, anyway, to get back to the point is that I don't think it would hurt to go back to K-State. I think it would be prudent. And by the way, Jacob, you touch on every situation like this anymore. Every situation where a kid's looking, do I or don't I go to whatever professional league he is of a part of whatever sport he's a part of. I get it. NIL is going to come into the conversation. He would do very well at Kansas State. He'd make some money. He'd get healthy. He'd have a chance to showcase himself. I'm not so sure that he wouldn't help himself, literally help himself.
Well,
one more.
his situation's hard because there's a medical component.
Well,
to it.
that's
I don't want to speculate on that. But for guys like, let's take Kevin McCullough as an example.
All right.
Kevin McCullough, who by all accounts is healthy and fine. That's the kind of player, much like Hunter Dickinson, where you're like, go test the draft water, like go through that process and see, because Kevin McCullough physically also to me looks like an NBA player. It becomes a question of ability, I think, at that point. But Kevin McCullough becomes a really interesting example of somebody, and this is where, and again, everybody has different motivations. But if the options for somebody are international basketball, G League, or college basketball, I would love to see the financial pieces of all those stacked up next to each other.
Right.
I would love to see that because, for a guy going to play another year at KU isn't any better or worse than going to play in the G League to me. Not the way college basketball is going right now. And so like that, you're not losing anything by going back to college. Did Oscar Tshiebwe lose anything by going back to Kentucky? No, he probably made a ton of money.
But I will say the difference in all of that is that there is a marketability component by playing in college where there isn't playing overseas.
Right. I totally agree.
Or playing in the G League, right? So you go over and you play college basketball, or you go and play professional basketball in Europe, right? You're going to get a salary for playing in that country on that team. It's kind of cut and dry. Boom, you're done. Same thing with the G League. In college, it's going to be different based on the player's marketability for the university and for the market that they're in. Being able to cash in on endorsement opportunities and things like that, where, let's face it, the G League, you're not really getting that. You're not getting that by playing overseas either. So that makes it more difficult to compare, because if you are a marketable commodity at the college level, then that might make more sense for you to go and stay in college another year and make NIL dollars. If you're not, if you've got the talent, right? You've got the talent to go and play overseas or go and play in the G League, but maybe you're not the most marketable, then maybe it makes more sense for you to go and leave college and go overseas or go and play in the G League.
I think so. And the other thing, and again, this is where you got to know everybody's motivations, Paul. There is a world where you become more NBA ready by going to the G League than college basketball, because it's just, that's what it's for. So, for a lot of guys, maybe it's like, I just like, my life's goal is to play in the NBA, and I will do everything I can possibly do to reach that goal. Then going to try and make a G League roster does make sense for a lot of people. And that's totally fine. Like that's what gets really interesting. That's where, I don't like saying, oh, he made a good decision or bad decision, because there's about a billion things that have to go into these decisions, right? And Keontae Johnson's got to make that too. Keontae Johnson's is unique because of the medical status that he, like, what is his shelf life as a basketball player, I think is a major question. And, if I'm an NBA team and I feel like Keontae Johnson ability-wise might have it, but I just don't know about his health, that's where like G League makes a ton of sense. Can he go handle a G League grind? And if he does, then it's like, okay, maybe we have something here. And that makes some sense to me, right? Like playing more than once or twice a week for somebody like Keontae Johnson to go prove that component of his game makes absolute sense to me, Paul, that he might take that option even if he's not drafted.
Well, I would do whatever I can to stay out of the G League. I'd try to go straight from college, straight into the NBA and not go to the G League. That's what I would try to do. And if your destiny, you had any estimation that the destiny that you were bound to have had to do with the G League, I wouldn't do it. I'd go back to college. I'd go back to college, make my money, make my NIL, and I would go back. That's what I would do. There's always the G League. Say things don't work out in college the way you think, or at K-State the way you want them to work next year for the next season, then you can still go to the G League. You still can go do what you got to do. Probably you'll also be healthier. That's a side benefit in this particular case. And I'm just, guys, I'm just going to take a moment and say this. I'm so struck at how the world has changed in the world of college sports.
You get paid in the G League. Just real
Well, you're not
quick,
getting
the G
rich.
League's the G League salary is $40,000
Yeah,
a year.
you're not gonna
which,
get
if you
rich.
go over the months played, is $8,000 a month, which is not chump change, right? That's pretty good. And so, like, I don't know. And again, I don't, Hunter Dickinson's NIL is not the same as everybody else's NIL. So it for a lot of players, like, is $40,000 a year and getting the grind and direct ear of an NBA team more valuable than whatever your NIL deal is? That's the part of the equation we can all guess at. We don't know it, right? Like, you can't really quantify the value of the G League. You can quantify a salary, but you can't quantify the value of that. So it's not like they're getting nothing by going to the G League or nothing by going international. I know a lot of guys that I've known over the years. They make six figures playing international basketball.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, there's financial incentives to doing that too. That's why the G League's a nice option.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, there are a ton of players that have gone and made really, really nice livings for themselves by playing international basketball. So it's not a straight up apples to apples comparison,
right,
between returning to college and getting NIL money potentially, and then making a salary internationally or in the G League.
Right.
There is a comparison, but it's not apples to apples. So there's got to be an individual component on what the priorities are for the player. And so I totally understand with Keontae Johnson making that call.
Proud to have you guys
Hunter
on the Baylor
Dickinson
tree.
is the top end. All right. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll put a bow on it here. Sports Daily on a Tuesday.
I'm going after the deals at Crazy J.
Crazy J's Furniture and Sleep Shop is Wichita's favorite family-owned furniture store, deeply rooted in our community since 1997, strongly invested supporting our local community, assisting nonprofit organizations, and providing aid to those in need. We encourage you to shop local and support small businesses, keeping your dollars in our community, providing a brighter tomorrow for our children and future generations. Thank you for making us your favorite furniture store since 1997 and allowing us to be of service within our community.
Are you looking to install new pavement at your home or business? Call the pavement professionals at Pave the Way today at 316-990-5855 for a fast free estimate for all your pavement installation and maintenance needs. They specialize in asphalt and concrete paving and custom tailor your estimate to fit your individual needs and budget.
for us. Hey, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow. Good stuff today. Our thanks to everybody on board with the program. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching on the video stream. We'll be back tomorrow with more. We'll get you through a reaction to game 1 of those NBA playoffs. You've got Royals baseball coming later today here on KFH. Looking forward to that. All kinds of good stuff. We'll get to it all tomorrow. We'll see you then. For Tommy Castor, for Paul Savage, for Max Power, I'm Jacob Albracht. See you Wednesday.